Hey, what's up everyone? It's me, Lex, back at you with another Starfinder playtest video. Today I have a combat demonstration utilizing a full party of the new classes in the playtest rulebook. I'm just going to do some quick introductions here. I won't get too in-depth, that'll be for other videos. But I have Happy, the Solarian Radiant attuned who is based around utilizing twin weapons, getting in close, and locking enemies down. I have Swag, the Envoy, based around acquiring assets and utilizing tools to properly lead a party. Z, the Witchwarper, who is based all around kind of control and area support. And Dynas, the Operative Sniper, who is going to be taking kind of a physical backseat to provide support for the party. As for the setting, our party here has an important mission to go on that is going to take them far, far out into the vast, and their drift engine is not strong enough to make the trip. So they have had to track down, with their current budget, someone who is selling a drift engine powerful enough for their task. They've managed to strike a deal with the owner of this pirate ship, and they're meeting at late evening to make the transfer, make the trade. But they're not too comfortable with the potential that dealing with pirates, and especially pirates who are seemingly giving you a good deal, is going to turn out well for them. And so they are going to, here at the door, send Dynas up to the side, and it will utilize its jetpack to get onto these containers, and then we'll simply run across them and jump these gaps to get to right here with some stealthy maneuvering, and prepare to overlook the meeting site, which is designated to be down there. As Dynas does this, the other three are going to begin their approach down the middle. And when they get to right here, the fungal warden in their path is going to kind of heft his gun kind of to the side and say to stop right there. They need to toss over payment, and then he'll go and get the warp drive for them. Understandably, Swag is going to take a step forward here and kind of point accusatorily and say something along the lines of, "We aren't going to pay if we don't see what we're buying." The warden will double down and say that he doesn't have any control over it. They need to pay first, and then they'll get what they're looking for. And this is going to continue as a back and forth, hostilities kind of breaking out, and eventually this fungal warden, taking a hand off his gun to place fingers in his mouth, will blow an incredibly loud whistle, and that will begin combat as these two hatchling swarms burst forth, and they get a free 20-foot stride on initiative as part of the setting here. Will burst forth to engage the party in combat. We're going to add everyone here and roll all of these dice. Get everyone lined up. Perfect. And then we will begin this encounter. Now we're leading off with Dynas up here, who is going to be able to take a... we'll go for a sneak to the edge here, because Dynas is still out of view, and a perception of 23 meets the DC, which means that Dynas will remain hidden as he's going to, seeing everything breaking out, Dynas will aim and take a shot with utilizing Weakening Shot. And as the GM, I'm going to say that aiming is a activity that is non-intrusive enough that Dynas is going to get to make a stealth check to attempt to stay hidden. Unfortunately, the 22 will not beat the DC, and so the Fungal Warden will no longer be off guard. But aiming will be giving Dynas some additional damage here. So, taking that shot, rolling a 3 on the opening, kind of rough. Dynas is going to go for a hero point. And hit. Dealing 31 damage to this Fungal Warden, which is going to get reduced by 5 because of its resistance to bludgeoning and piercing. Being a creature made of wood, and it'll kind of shout out as this bullet rings out, echoing across the containers and splintering his wood bits. As we go to his turn, he is going to take an action to properly wield his weapon, an action for shield and shoot, which allows him to raise his kind of wooden body to protect himself and shoot someone as a single action. He's going to aim for the person that he was having disagreements with, Swag, and will hit for 11 poison damage. And then with his last action, he is going to stride back to here, just around the corner of this shipping container. This will give him standard cover from effects coming this direction, is what I will say. Next up is going to be this hatchling swarm at the top here. It's a swarm creature with various abilities. It's going to take a single stride up to here, kind of they crawl around the various machines on the ground here. And then they're going to use their Sonic Chorus with their last 2 actions here. That'll be a 10-foot emanation, which is only enough to reach Happy, actually. We'll make this reflex save. No, not the hatchling swarm. Here we go. There we go. Happy will roll that reflex save and get a failure, taking 12 damage. Alrighty. And speaking of Happy, we're right over to his turn. And this is where my relative newness to the playtest rules comes into play. It doesn't matter particularly, but Happy should have been able to use the Attune action as a free action on initiative to manifest his solar weapons. Specifically, this is and these have to be pre-selected, a bludgeoning reach pick, and a twin weapon in the offhand that is a slashing freehand and versatile piercing pick. Kind of these twinned picks, one of them extending off of a gauntlet, manifest in Happy's hands as combat begins. And also this would have allowed Happy, upon taking this damage, I believe, to use Nimbus Surge. No, it would not. But the reach weapon would have allowed Happy to use Reactive Strike on the swarm as they approached. So, just quickly catching up with that. A simple swing and a critical miss. Alright. Now we're at Happy's actual beginning of turn here. Happy is going to go for an Eclipse Strike. This is a special action. It lets you make a melee strike with your solar weapon. So we'll go for that now. That'll hit. On a hit, you get to make the creature become normal cover for you instead of lesser cover from its allies. And because Happy is photon attuned, the creature's attacks, or if a creature's attack would have cover from this creature, so if someone was on the other side of it, then that creature will also take a penalty to their attack. And then finally, another thing, it's not the most well integrated into Foundry, but the solar weapons have specific bonuses depending on what you're attuned to. And so Happy being photon attuned, a successful strike here will do an additional amount of fire damage equal to half his level rounded up. In this case, at level 5, that will be 3 damage. So that will be 3 additional damage, and it is fire damage. And with a weakness 5 to fire damage, this swarm will take that extra 5, still resisting a bit because of the bludgeoning resistance. Happy will see kind of the bludgeoning tip of one of his picks is resisted a little bit by their carapaces. Not particularly hard, but the fire will burn them. And then because this was a cycling action, then after it is resolved, Happy will move over to Graviton attuned and will be able to use more actions here. I think Happy is going to go for a stride up to here, trying to somewhat close the distance, but stay within reach of this hatchling swarm to try to deliver a follow-up hit against it, which will strike, and I'm going to apply the Graviton attuned benefit, which is that all squares adjacent to this creature, it's going to treat as difficult terrain until the end of its next turn because of that Graviton attunement. And it will take 14 damage, just barely hanging on. And that will be Happy's whole turn. We're then going to move on to this next swarm, which is going to take 2 move actions to move up into this square here with Swag. And then it will do swarming bites. So that will be 13 damage halved for Swag because of a successful reflex save. Alrighty. Z here. And this is another thing I forgot on initiative. Z, using Quantum Pulse, should have been able to use the Warp Reality action. So I will do that now. This is how Witchwarper can manifest their Quantum Field, which is how a lot of their abilities gain benefits from, or are based around their Quantum Field. What Z would have done was open it up directly on the mushroom guy, and it would not have done anything on its own, because as an anomaly paradox, the only benefit is that concentrate actions have a chance to be disrupted. That's its basic benefit. Now that we're caught up, Z's turn begins, and they will use the Warp Terrain focus spell. This has the anchoring trait, so it will sustain the warped reality, the quantum field. And then additionally, it lets Z choose to add an effect to the quantum field. Z is going to choose the first one here, which makes the quantum field become difficult terrain only for enemies. And then Z and their allies can move through it normally and can take cover anywhere within it, utilizing its features. That'll be a single action, and then Z is going to go ahead and try to finish off this hatchling swarm with an arc rifle shot. That'll hit, do 4 damage, which will be enough to kill it regardless. And then with Z's last action, a stride up into the quantum field, just to feel a little bit more at home is nice enough. Next up is Swag, who is going to be taking a lead on focusing down the Warden, a stride up into the quantum field, an action on Get 'em to point out this ally, or to point out this enemy as the focus point for all of the allies' attacks. And because Swag is going to be attacking this target, I will activate the Lead by Example benefit. And Swag will be using Acquire Asset on this action, which allows Swag to make an attack. That'll hit. Unfortunately will not crit because of the Warden's raised shield. And then on a hit, the target becomes Swag's asset automatically. And that'll do 15 damage because of the sizable flat damage bonus from Get 'em. When you lead by example, it adds damage to your and your allies' strikes. It'll still be resisted somewhat by the Fungal Warden, very resistant to piercing damage, but it's going to be able to pierce through a very solid amount. And then we're going to move over to Dynus here, and gonna sit I'm gonna move this to Sunset, I suppose. Oh my, that's quite a lot of effects. Don't worry about that too much. Clear that. Alrighty. With this guy's shield still raised, yes, we're going to take the lead here with Dynus. There we go. Oopsie. I'm having a whole struggle with my Foundry right now. Alrighty. And then you just need to use Get 'em and activate the Lead by Example. Alright. Lovely. Sorry about that. Dynus is going to use the reload action, and because of the mobile reload feature that operatives get, Dynus will get to stride as part of that. That'll just be to move up to here, just the corner, to get a better view on this Fungal Warden. And then I totally forgot that Weakening Shot has an additional effect last round. I will not forget this time, as Dynus will use Aim and then make a strike, and hitting, not critting because of the raised shield. That is still going to be 31 damage, and then Dynus's choice of Clumsy or Enfeebled 1. Dynus is going to choose Clumsy. And that 31 damage is going to pierce through pretty well on that Fungal Warden. And that will be Dynus's whole turn. This Fungal Warden is not liking how things are going, and so is going to spend all 3 actions just running for the door. And that'll actually put him right there. Alrighty. Happy is going to try and focus on getting rid of this hatchling swarm before it becomes a problem. So Happy is going to use the, yeah, we'll go for an Eclipse Strike against this hatchling swarm. So that'll be a solar weapon attack. That'll be a critical miss. Being Graviton attuned, Happy will still gain this benefit, which is that until the start of his next turn, whenever he wouldn't have any cover against an attack, he gains the benefits of lesser cover, which is very nice. And then, because that is a cycle action, he'll switch over to Photon Attunement. And he'll use I'll say, yeah, just 2 actions on simple strikes against this hatchling swarm. Trying to push through with that weakness that he's going to trigger, because he does 3 additional damage, and then that is 5 more in weakness. That'll do some very solid damage, and unfortunately will not hit twice in a row. It makes sense at such a high multiple attack penalty. This hatchling swarm is going to spend its first 2 actions screeching in a sonic chorus, and a 10-foot emanation is only going to hit Happy, who will make that reflex save and take 19 sonic damage. It's then going to stride forwards to try to start clambering around him, at which point he will use his reactive strike to attack it, doing 14 damage plus 3 fire, which then adds on 5 from the weakness to do 20 damage and killing the rest of the swarm. It's then going to be Z's turn, who, seeing the fungal warden begin to run, is going to take advantage of some longer range spells. I believe Overheat. Yeah, Overheat was very, very solid. And 60 feet just means up to here. Let's see. I don't think Z can close that gap, unfortunately. Z will use Cellular Stimulant. This is a special 1-action spell, targeting swag here. And it can be voluntarily failed. If the target fails, which in this case swag is going to choose to do, they become quickened, which they can use only to strike or stride on their next round. And then after that round, they become fatigued until they can rest for 10 minutes. So kind of a jolt of adrenaline here. And Z will then spend 1 action striding up, and 1 action just trying to make a strike, even with a range penalty, getting in a little bit of damage. A very high roll, the range penalty will prevent from being a critical hit. And this fungal warden will take some solid damage. And then at the end of Z's turn here, their manifestation is going to collapse because they did not sustain it. Yeah. Alrighty. Next up is going to be Swag, who is quickened, and is going to go ahead and take advantage of that option to stride twice, use the Get 'em ability on this fungal warden, and then we'll lead by example with a strike against this fungal warden. Oh, a 3 on the die, a hero point will close out into a little bit of damage, but not enough to pierce that wooden hide. Let's see if this warden is going to get away, or if our sniper is going to be able to take him out. That'll be a reload action, and with nowhere to go, straight into a weakening shot, which is an aim action, and oh goodness, yes, all right, an aim action, and then a strike with a single range penalty because of the 155-foot distance. It's going to hit because of both clumsy and Get 'em. Either one would have caused that to be a hit, but that is going to do 22 damage and drop this fungal warden down. At this point, shots being fired, alarms are sounding in this area, and the party does not want to get into too much trouble, especially with Swag here, now being fatigued by the spell disappearing. And surely fatigued is on here. There it is. Alrighty. And so exiting initiative here, the party is going to retreat briefly kind of behind here. Dynas will use the jetpack to float down to join the rest of the party. And everyone gathering together is going to rest up and recover. Dynas is going to try and stick with the party a little bit more now. And I will simply heal them up because I don't need to adjudicate healing in a combat demonstration. The party is, however, going to then, after that short rest, make their way up here. By this point, the captain has been able to set up some defensive measures, and he's working to try to get the ship to take off into space. And the party do not want him to be able to do that. So we're going to have Dynas set up right here, like on top of these, peeking over the top of this for standard cover and a very, very solid sightline. So that'll be standard cover and avoid notice as an exploration activity, as the other three will make their way up to the front, like so, and then open this door at once, beginning initiative. And now in this case, there are 2 laser turret traps that the party witnesses as they open the door come out of the ceiling and turn towards them, ready to fire. And I will roll all of these initiatives. There we go. Beginning this encounter, Swag is acting first, seeing a couple of protection class security robots push off of the wall from their charging stations and ready their fists and laser rifles to close on the party. And the laser turrets turning to attack them as well. Swag is going to shout that they should probably get rid of the turrets first and take some simple shots against it. Let's see. Machine gun shot will critically hit, but objects are immune to crits. And that should be handled automatically. Yes. So the turret will become partially damaged, a little offset. Swag is going to continue with a second shot from the gun, dealing 7 damage, which is reduced to 1 by the laser turret's hardness. And then Swag is going to go ahead and run out of the way over here so that neither of the turrets can see it. Next up is going to be this robot, and the party might have a bit of an issue on their hands. What with wasting time on the laser turrets. I guess it's not completely wasted, but it isn't quite broken. It's just a little offset. This robot is going to be using... yeah, just an action to move forwards towards the middle. And then 2 actions firing off lasers at the person in the front, who will be Happy, who will get hit twice with those lasers. That's some very solid damage. Happy is not happy. And Happy doesn't want to deal with getting shot up by lasers either. So, a very decent option in this case, it seems, would be to utilize Stellar Rush. This allows Happy to stride twice with a plus 10-foot circumstance bonus to speed, so that'll be a 40-foot speed, 80 feet total movement. And during the length of this movement, there are some special effects. And so we'll say Happy's going to run like that. And then because Happy is photon attuned, all of the squares that he moves through are going to be suffused with solar energy, granting concealment to creatures on opposite sides of it. And functionally, once I draw out just a couple of lines, these are rough approximations, but these should be the relevant lines, I believe. There we go. All of these squares will grant concealment, and then Happy will cycle over to Graviton Attunement. Next up is Z, who should have been able to utilize Warp Reality on initiative. I'm remembering again. Totally on me. That would have been centered on the party, so just like this. And Z would have been able to refocus between encounters as well. Alright, now that we're caught up, Z is going to go for... things look pretty bad. So a high rank overheat should be a very solid attack against this security robot, is what Z thinks. We'll go for that. Cast it, targeting the one in the front. It will make that reflex save and fail, taking 18 damage. And then, additionally, the target's held equipment becomes hot to the touch for the next round, so that means the... I'll allow it to modify the tactical laser in this circumstance, although it would not actually count as held equipment. I'm doing so for the story here, and to reward the player for being a little, in this example, say, inventive. The held equipment becomes hot to the touch for the next round. Unless they drop their equipment at the start of their round, they take 9 fire damage. So I'm going to pop that out onto them as a reminder. And then because that is a signature spell that Z just cast there, with that... Oh, that should have been like that. There. That should also be at 4. And because that was a signature spell, that'll actually sustain the warped reality. And Z is just going to then spend an action striding up to here to get behind the wall. This laser turret doesn't have anything to shoot at because it can't see this line of sight and it can't shoot out that way. So it is simply going to pass its turn. This next robot is going to spend all 3 actions just moving out here and turning to glare at the party, kind of readying itself. This turret also cannot take any shots. And then Dynas here is not hidden enough to gain any sort of flat-footed, but is going to be able to take advantage of shooting at this robot with a weakening shot to aim first and then shoot. Oh, just barely missing on such a low roll as well. And then a, I'll say a reload action with a step to get up to right here. Next up, and back at the top of the round, is going to be Swag, who is going to, attempt to use Get 'em on this robot here. Needing to pass the concealment check will do so. And then Swag is going to then take a shot, or attempt to take a shot through concealment, which means that Get 'em will be led by example. And that shot will also manage to pierce the concealment. And Swag will hit just perfectly because of the Get 'em AC bonus. If only that had been on when Dynus took its shot. Swag will hit and do 15 damage, reduced not at all by the robot's lack of resistances. Very interesting how game design works, where wood does but metal does not. And then Swag will be using the last action to kind of duck around the back of the car here to gain, I'll say, lesser cover in this circumstance if the robot was to shoot at it. Next up is this robot, who is going to stride twice out into the open here. Not dropping its weapon means that it'll take 9 fire damage, which it has no sort of resistance to, so it'll just take that. And then with its last action, it's going to continue to try to beam down Happy here. Passing the concealed check, that laser rifle shot will be a critical miss. And then we're going to move over to Happy. I believe Stellar Rush lasted until the start of your next turn, so now this concealment wall is gone. Happy is going to, currently being Graviton attuned. Alrighty. Take an action. Yeah. Take an action striding into this zone here. Take an action taking cover, utilizing the unique properties of the zone to gain cover despite not having like a set physical feature. And then take an Eclipse Strike, which will be against the injured one. Unfortunate miss means that there will be no cover, but being Graviton attuned means that if Happy didn't already have standard cover, he would have lesser cover against all attacks, and he will then cycle over to Photon attuned. We're over to Z now, who is going to go for an injury echo on the robot to the right here, doing piercing damage. This is a new spell, and one that I like quite a lot. The robot will fail. It does some initial damage, a very small amount, 5 damage here, but then if the target takes the same type of damage before the end of Z's next turn here, it takes an additional 2d4 bleed. And in this circumstance, I'm going to say that bleed will apply to this robot, because I'm trying to be fun here, and I'm going to have it be like some of its essential oil, keeping it from locking up, is leaking out. Z probably would have been able to guess in a more tactical-minded game that the bleed would not work against a robot, but I like the story more. And then Z will spend an action, and I'm realizing now that Happy actually, the zone does not count as cover, so Happy could not have done that. But using warp terrain to establish that, I'll say now it's fine, and Happy has standard cover. And this sustains the terrain, as it also turns it into difficult terrain for the enemies, and lets it provide cover for our party. We're going to skip over this laser turret to this robot, who is going to go ahead and try to shoot at Happy here. And Happy will be able to take a reactive strike, which will hit and do 10 damage against this robot, plus an additional 3 for being photon attuned. And now we'll see the robot's shot get off. It's going to do 13 damage to Happy. And then getting hit for attempting to shoot it, this robot is going to step forwards and start using its fists because it does not want to get attacked again. And that'll be a miss. We'll skip over this laser turret because it again has no targets in sight. Dynus now, let's see if it can do good for the party here. With an already reloaded gun, not much more to do than a weakening shot, which will be against the one in the back because it looks slightly more injured. And with an aim and a strike, hopefully this will hit this time. Another 3 on the die, and I would say at this point the party would likely have more hero points. So Dynus could roll that 3 into a 2, and I'm gonna just give Dynus another roll at it. There we go. Sometimes, you know, the dice can swing things certain ways, but I like to encourage a solid story. This is still a 9, under average. That'll hit and do only 11 damage because of a very low roll there. That's something you have to look out for with ranged weapons. But that will still do 11 damage, and then the injury echo will do some additional bleed damage to the robot here. 2d4, and I'm just going to type it as acid so that it doesn't interfere with its bleed immunity or anything, but it is bleeding. And then Dynus will take a reload, just staying stationary. Very good position to be in currently. Swag is going to go ahead and... It would be great to get this one out of the way, but it's even better to focus fire. So a get 'em on the one in the back, leading by example by using just a couple of shots from the back. That'll be a miss and another miss, unfortunately. And then this one, which is currently bleeding from that shot off to the side here, is going to go ahead and move Dynus's direction. With a speed of 25 feet, that's going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 to exit the area. And then another 25 feet with an action here. And as it's closing this gap, it's going to take a shot at Dynus, who will have standard cover. It'll still hit, unfortunately, and Dynus will get some singed fur. Then we're going to move on to Happy. As this robot, the oil spills out and it starts kind of jamming up a little bit. Happy is going to go ahead and... yeah, I'll say go for a strike first. Nice and simple. Critical hit will do 28 damage plus the additional 3, which also gets doubled. That'll be 34 damage. Very, very solid with that critical hit there. And then Happy will use the supernova action as a 15-foot emanation. So unfortunately this will catch Z to kind of unleash a large amount of fire damage in a burst, or in an emanation. Z is going to fail. The robot is going to succeed, unfortunately. and that'll do 5d8 fire, so half to the robot. It is just barely hanging on, 2 HP. Happy takes 22, and on a success, so the robot is dazzled. On a failure, Z is blinded by this burst of light, and then Supernova will cycle Happy over to Graviton Attunement. So this massive burst of light kind of comes out from over here, and Z is not able to look away in time and gets fully blinded as this robot just barely hangs on. And it's unfortunate because Z, being blinded, can't see and can't detect anything using vision. Z is going to go ahead and use a spell. We'll go for Ricochet, targeting the square that Z last knew the creature was in, because not being able to see means that the robot is essentially hidden. So that'll be a DC 11 flat check. That'll succeed, which means that the robot needs to make a reflex save. That'll also succeed, and we'll see if half damage is in fact enough to take that robot down. It's going to collapse onto the floor. And then Z's last action will be sustaining their warped reality. Alrighty. We're going to skip over the 2 turrets. Luckily, the party have been able to pull the robots out because they are not working on too advanced of a system here. Dynas is going to try and close this guy out, this robot out, before it can get to it with... We'll go for a tactical advance, move up to half speed without triggering reactions to get to right here, because of the speed of 30 feet. And then with no cover between the two of them, just line up a solid sniper rifle shot. And as a sniper, Dynas gets to ignore the volley trait. A hit against this robot will do only 8 damage. Oh, that's rough. And with a weakening shot hitting, that'll make the robot clumsy 1. Alrighty. Dynas is over here shouting out for help as this robot closes in. Swag is going to dart up and kind of round the corner here and take an action pointing out the robot with Get 'em to reapply that penalty to AC and get that damage bonus, as it also takes a shot, just barely not critically hitting, and doing 10 damage, which is enough to turn the robot around, because that was more damage than Dynas's sniper rifle. The shot reflected off its arm. And so this robot is going to take just 3 shots from its laser rifle at Swag here, hitting twice. And the first one not critting because of the combination of cover and clumsy. Still, 33 fire damage is certainly going to hurt, and Swag is not too happy with that. But speaking of happy, as the oil is leaking out of this robot, Happy is going to run up and take a swing with his solar weapon, critically hitting because of the either the clumsy or the Get 'em, and that'll do a huge amount of damage, knocking this robot straight out. And we're going to exit initiative here, as the party can easily enough deal with the laser turrets at this point. without the pressure of the robots on them. Party is going to recollect themselves one last time and recover their wounds before they push in for the confronting the captain here. There we go. And healing. Alrighty. So now the ship has started to take off. It's beginning like its procedures here. We're gonna have Dynas go and use a jetpack to get up on top of this kind of excavator neck thing, whereas Z is going to hang back by the door over here, as they know that the captain's quarters is up here. And during this time, the gunners are setting up their own kind of ambush for the party, while they're also piloting. And then Happy and Swag will be leading as a team. And they will bust the door down, revealing the party of goblins already armed, as the engine thrusters are starting to whir up into loud noise. We will roll initiative one more time, and I'm not going to forget this time all of the on initiative effects. Alrighty. I will roll all of these dice. There we go. Alrighty. And then Z can use warp reality to manifest that zone, and that'll be right here as a free action. Happy just manifests his equipment, and that should be everyone's on initiative stuff. We'll begin initiative then with the goblin gunner, or the pirate captain, who is gonna hop up onto the table and scream that they're never gonna take him alive. The goblins here have in fact come to the conclusion that the party is intending to take them in for bounty. This goblin gunner is wielding his roto laser currently with currently with one hand, and he has an incendiary grenade in the other, which is what he is going to toss at the party here. And that's what this area fire is. A 5-foot burst is enough to hit both of them here. Oh, a range of 30 feet. Oh, he doesn't have that. Alrighty, he is not going to be able to throw that grenade unless he runs up a little, which he will. And then he puts down a 5-foot burst right there, which is enough to hit the two members of the party, who will make their reflex saves. Both of them will fail and take full damage from this goblin gunner. I'm going to reset those hero points real quick. Alrighty. Yeah, the party will go ahead and take that damage. It's a pretty sizable amount to take up front, as that grenade explodes under their feet and scatters flames onto them. But it's probably for the best. Dynas here is kind of struggling with the angle. I'm going to say there's a shot on this guy, but he is going to have standard cover, which Dynas is okay with. And with 105 feet, it's unfortunately not going to be enough to gain the extra damage. Dynas is going to go for simply activating the jetpack to fly here as 5 feet, and then you can descend straight down double speed. So that'll be all the way down to the ground. That's fine. Dynas will then take another action just striding up to here, at which point this is a clear enough shot for just lesser cover on this guy up here, I would say. And Dynas will go ahead and take that shot. Critical hit with the fatal trait, and then the weapon specialization is not integrated into Foundry, but for snipers it's an additional 2 damage per weapon damage die, so this will do 4 additional damage, which is almost enough to take this goblin straight out of the combat. Very good shot from the cat on the back lines. Next up is this gunner, who is going to take a push off of this chair here, holding his roto laser, and he's gonna just take a single shot at each of the party members in the front here. He will hit Swag with his multiple attack penalty. Swag is looking pretty bad now. But that's okay, because sometimes the leader can take advantage of some cover. A get 'em on the guy who is already very injured would help in trying to close it out. So it is going to go for that. A get 'em and lead by example with a strike immediately against that goblin. Unfortunately, that will miss. And then it's going to take an action backing up. Next up is the gunner, who is just hanging on. He doesn't like at all of the shots he's taken and the fact that he's been pointed out. So he's actually going to run back here and take cover behind this console for greater cover due to him being so small. And then he's going to take a shot at Happy, which will hit for some very sizable damage. Next up is Z, who is going to see if they can do anything about this whole situation. Tossing down an irradiate. This is a 20-foot burst of radiation right there. No. There. That seems appropriate. And each creature within, at the beginning of each of their turns, as well as when create a burst of it, use your spell DC, immediate onset. Okay, yes. For an hour, this area is irradiated, and so the creatures within will have to make saves or else become irradiated. It's not precisely defined to me whether this is an immediate save or beginning of turn save, and I think what's fairest is beginning of turn. So I will extempore this effect, and whenever a creature begins its turn in this area, I'll make them make that save. Speaking of, it's very good timing. This goblin is going to make his save versus radiation, and there is, I don't believe, radiation sickness. There is not actually a built-in effect for this in the Foundry, but you can find it in the playtest document under the deities section, under radiation. You can get radiation sickness. This is mild by default. So that immediate onset and a failed save means that this goblin gunner will take 1d4 poison damage. So that'll be 4 damage. And he becomes sickened 1. Alrighty. Now this goblin gets to take his turn. He does not like what he's feeling at all, so he's going to run out here into the open to get away from that sickness. He's also somewhat chasing down Swag here. Happy will be taking a reactive strike against him, unfortunately missing. And this goblin, seeing the full party out here, and seeing Z's actions, and I just realized I actually forgot to do Z's last action. It would have been a warp terrain to both sustain and turn this into difficult terrain. Anyways, seeing the arcane power being kind of pulled together by Z, this goblin is actually going to go for them. And a hit is going to do some immense damage with high rolls on both of those D12s. Z is already half down. And then, because that was a stride and a strike, I believe, he'll pull out a grenade. Happy is going to try and take care of this goblin with a strike, which will unfortunately miss. And then a stellar rush to kind of wrap around this area and create this blanket of concealment through this doorway, switching over, or no, Happy is currently graviton attuned, so that strike could have been a eclipse strike first to cycle over to photon and then use stellar rush. And for using an eclipse strike while graviton attuned, Happy will also have lesser cover. And Happy will end here. Alrighty. And reattuned then to graviton after using the stellar rush. Alrighty. We figured it out. This goblin, the captain, is sensing victory in the air. So he is going to kind of just cheer on his goblins here, and draw a grenade and ready in action to shoot anyone who comes through the door. Dinas here is in the business of taking out foes, and so is going to take a reload and stride up to here, and then will use weakening shot, aiming at this goblin in the back there, and take a shot against him. That'll hit and do 20 damage, which is enough to kill that goblin. It'll flop down onto the ground. It peeked up for a brief moment to try and get a better shot. Alrighty. Now we're over to this guy who got out of the chair. He has to make that save against the radiation. So that'll be a fortitude save. And with a spell DC of 21, a 28 is going to pass. So this guy is fine with the radiation. Maybe he's a little comfortable with it. Well, what he's not comfortable with is seeing his friend get killed. And so he's going to take a shot against Dinas here. That'll hit for 15 damage. And then he'll take an action to pull out his incendiary grenade, and an action to move closer, because he needs to be closer to be able to throw it. Alrighty. I also forgot to do the concealed check there for Dinas, who would have rolled a 2 and could spend a hero point to turn that into a 15, so that's fine. And then the goblin gunner, who would not have been able to hit Dinas. There we go. It's not important that you get it right the first time, as long as you get it right in the end. That's how I feel about GMing. Then we're over to Swag here, who, seeing the enemies flooding through the door, is going to go ahead and, let's see. Because machine gun is a range increment of 40 feet. I think more potent than an area fire in this situation would be a get 'em. against this goblin who is sickened. And we'll see if the concealment passes through. Yep, that's fine. And then 2 actions just shooting at this goblin. Both will miss regardless of concealment, though they would have passed the concealment checks. Unfortunate. Alrighty, we're now over to Z again, who is going to be just slightly out of range to target both of those goblins. And so we'll stride over to here and cast from, Soul Surge on the goblin in the front. As a signature spell, this will also sustain the field in the back there. This is an attack roll spell. We'll see if it passes the flat check. Perfect. And an attack, I'm going to hero point that into a critical hit. That is lovely. Doing 8d6 spirit damage, doubled for being a critical hit, and the goblin gunner, were it not already dead, would become drained 1 from Soul Surge. Z will also lose 8 hit points from the sheer potency of the spell being output, but it has removed an enemy from combat. Very nice. We're over to Happy now, and as Happy's turn begins, the concealment dissipates. With the tides somewhat turning here, perhaps some would say even majorly turning, Happy is going to move up here to stay out of the radiation, just to here. Yes. With a stride action. And then we'll take a Eclipse Strike against this Goblin Gunner, gaining a lesser cover to all attacks, and making a strike. That'll hit and do 14 damage. And again, because of being Graviton attuned, just any strike, this Goblin Gunner will now treat all adjacent squares as difficult terrain on its next turn. And then because that is cycling, Happy will switch over to Photon again here. And will take the opportunity to simply strike twice more at the Goblin. Unfortunately missing, but not unexpected. Alrighty. The captain now needs to make a fortitude save against that radiation, and will be fine. He is going to take some actions getting into combat here. It'll take 2 actions to move up to there, so he's not going to do that. He's going to take 1 action to move over to here. 1 action to shoot Happy, which will only not crit because of the range penalty. Doing 20 damage. Happy is near death here. Near being knocked down, anyway. And he's going to go ahead and go for a kill shot. Try and knock Happy down, and will succeed in that endeavor. Happy is going to go down to unconscious and dying 1. And I will bring his initiative up to above the gunner as he kind of jeers as he gets this last shot off, and Happy drops. Alrighty. Dinus is going to go ahead and probably a good idea to close out what's already here. And so a reload, which will include a stride over to here to get some cover from the captain. And then a weakening shot, which will aim and then make a strike. Again, ignoring volley because of being a sniper. That'll hit and do 19 damage to this goblin. It looks pretty worse for wear, but that's about it. And then it's going to take its own turn. Kind of cheering that the captain got Happy down. It's going to toss the grenade that it pulled out earlier at Dynas and Swag over here. The two of them will have to make that reflex save. Success on Dynas and a failure on Swag. Swag's going to go for a hero point on that. The damage is going to be 22. Good thing that Swag chose to hero point that, because otherwise that would have brought it down. Half damage is going to still be pretty solid against both of them. And then the Goblin Gunner here is going to go for a couple of strikes at Swag. The area fire of grenades does increment the multiple attack penalty. So the Goblin Gunner will nat 1 both attacks, so it didn't matter anyway. Very funny. Next up is Swag, who is pretty sick of this whole thing, honestly. Get him on the Goblin Gunner to debuff him, and leading by example with a couple of shots, only one of which will hit, but it'll still do some really solid damage because of that flat combined with some decent rolls. A goblin is still up. Alrighty. Z is going to try and close out on this goblin here with, we'll go for, it's near death. Yeah, an Eldritch Lance, and this is another new spell. It's a mental spell, attack roll. Unfortunately, will miss by 1. And Z will go for a shot with the arc rifle, which will also miss, just barely. Happy, dying on the floor, will make a dying check and fail, going up to dying 2. It's the captain's turn. It's going to spend 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 73 actions, getting all the way up to the front here like so. And also exposing himself to radiation in the process. But a fortitude save of 33 means that he will be fine as he manages to come out here. Alrighty. Dynas is, I think at this point in the business of trying to be sure that this guy's dead before he gets another turn. So it'll be a reload with a stride to get some more distance. An action on, just a simple weakening shot on this goblin in the back for an aim and a shot, which will miss just barely. So I will say a hero point is appropriate for that point, doing 21 damage and bringing that goblin down. Next up is Swag, at the verge of death here. Gonna use Get 'em on this captain and lead by example, but that'll be in a moment because Swag is going to go for a demoralize. And in this case, I just want to demonstrate something very interesting with the rules. we'll say Swag here does speak Common and does not speak Goblin, and we're going to go ahead and say that the captain here does not speak Common. He only speaks Goblin. The characters, if they're wearing tech armor or they purchase the appropriate tech gear item, it's specifically called a comm unit. It's on the adventuring gear page right here, the comm unit. It allows you to take any sort of actions that would be linguistic with anyone. It has a universal translator built in. But when you do so, it limits your proficiency with any kind of skill check to your proficiency with society. So in this case, doing demoralize with intimidation at expert, but only being trained in society, since these two do not share a language, Swag can still use the action. And using the universal translator will not take a -4 circumstance penalty to the check because it's meeting that kind of quote-unquote linguistic prerequisite here. But there will be this -2 penalty to represent that because society is only trained, intimidation is also going to cap out at trained here in this demoralize attempt against the goblin. Just a very, very fun thing that I noticed while reading through the book, something I wanted to touch on there. So the goblin gunner will become frightened 1 with a success. And then Swag will be taking that strike against him, critically hitting with a natural 20. Normal guns still aren't super grand for their damage output, but that will put a dent in him. Next up is going to be Z, who, seeing the situation, is going to go for, yeah, we'll say, okay, this is another very fun thing that I think is fair to bring up at this point. So there is a new spell called Selective Invisibility. This is one of my favorite spells I think I've ever seen. You target a creature you touch and one within range, a range of 500 feet. For the next minute, the creature you touch is invisible to everything except the targeted creature, and that only breaks if they use a hostile action against a creature other than the target. So Z is going to designate Dynas as the target here and touch themselves. And that'll render Z invisible to everyone except Dynas. And that'll only break when Z takes hostile actions. So Z is going to stride up here next to Happy. Next up is Happy, who is still dying. A failure on the dying check will bring him up to 3. But he's still hanging on. Alrighty. The captain, seeing Z vanish, is going to kind of cheer and point mockingly at the party. Take a shot at Swag. Ooh. Fortunately, missing. Fortunately for the party. Ooh, and unfortunately, critically hitting on his second shot. Swag is going to go down with a super duper solid beam to the shoulder. And then he'll take his third action shooting at Dynas. Oh, and that'll also hit because of a very high roll. Dynas is going to take a solid blow. Alrighty. And then we're right over to Dynas, who is going to take, yeah, I think just 2 actions on a weakening shot against this gunner after taking a reload and a stride to gain some more distance. And that strike will critically miss. We'll toss a hero point the party's way. Yikes, that is rough. Still a miss because of repeated low rolls. We're going to call that a hit, just for the purposes of storytelling here. 18 damage, and a weakening shot causing clumsy 1. And that'll be Dynas's whole turn. Just firing off shot after shot as it's pulling back. Swag should be up here in initiative, which is my bad. Alrighty. Z, invisible here, is going to pull out an item that I did not actually have properly prepared, but it is a med patch. The party had access to a few particularly potent med patches, and they gave them all to Z. That'll be 3 of them. Alrighty. Z is a Kasatha, and they have sets of 4 arms. Z's arms kind of retract and extend. Z actually had pre-prepared 2 med patches in their offhand set of arms, so they'll spend a single action here, swapping to their different arms, as opposed to the arms that are holding their arc rifle. And then they'll spend 2 actions applying both of the med patches to Happy here. So it'll apply and apply. Alrighty. And so that'll restore 2 Happy, 34 health, and then 37 health, which is almost enough to fully restore his HP, but not quite. And then still prone on the ground here, and after having fallen unconscious, those solar weapons were demanifested. But that will be Z's turn. And Z remains invisible because that was not a hostile action towards the captain here. Happy, on the other hand, is glad to take some hostile actions and will use Attune to manifest those solar weapons. That'll again be a bludgeoning reach pick. And a offhand weapon of slashing freehand with the versatile piercing pick. Alrighty, that'll be the first action. A second action to stand, because being on the ground is not good for combat. And then a third action on just a simple strike, I think, is most appropriate. Oh, an unfortunate miss. Alrighty. And this, the captain is going to kind of look over astounded that Happy has just risen from the edge of death. He's not quite sure what's going on. Swag here is going to make a death save and will critically succeed, actually, becoming simply unconscious instead of dying, but will remain unconscious. We'll move over to the captain, who is going to go ahead and try to shoot at Happy here. And as part of making that attack, Happy is going to get to reactive strike, but will unfortunately miss. And then he's going to toss down a grenade with area fire at Happy here. And that 5-foot burst is unfortunately going to include Z, invisible as they are. It just because he didn't want to overlap himself in the grenade, of course. Z will fail and Happy will succeed. And that is going to be enough to knock Z unconscious. And currently only Dynas can see them. So they will be knocked down to dying 1. Whereas Happy will only take 15 damage. And then the goblin is going to take his last action on another strike. He's a very talented shooter, but thankfully because of that weakening shot from Dinas, causing him to be clumsy, that will be a miss. Alrighty, we're over to Dinas again, and it is going to go for just a reload, moving in a little bit to kind of get a better angle in case this gunner were to try to retreat, or the captain were to try to retreat. And then another weakening shot, and the debilitation lasts until the end of your next turn, so that's going to apply to this gunner's AC, even as Dinas takes this shot, aiming and then shooting. And that'll be a hit for a very solid 19 damage, and keeping that clumsy one up. Alrighty. Z is actually going to be here in initiative, so we'll move to Happy next, who is going to go ahead and take it would be real risky to go for a supernova, but Happy doesn't know that Z is unconscious. Happy is going to go for a strike on the goblin, hitting for 18 plus that 3 fire for being photon attuned. 21. With the goblin near death, Happy is going to go for a supernova. It's a once per 10 minute activity. In a 15-foot emanation to maximize that damage. Both the gunner and Z are going to make these fortitude saves. Both of them will succeed their save, which means dazzled for a round. And this 5d8 fire damage will do half to each of them, which is specifically enough to bring Z up to dying 2. And then that will cycle Happy over to a graviton attunement. And that'll be Happy's turn. Another blast of cosmic energy. Alrighty. Swag is unconscious, but not dying. Z is dying, and will continue to die with a failure on the recovery check. Then we'll move over to the goblin gunner. He's going to kind of be stumbling back here, taking a shot before, or no, he'll take a step back, which exposes him to the radiation once again here. 20 on the fortitude save is actually low enough to fail. Whoopsie. The DC 21, which means that he will take 1 poison damage and become sickened 1 as he stumbles into the poison, or into the radiation here. Then he's going to take a shot against Happy. And before that shot can resolve, Happy gets to make a reactive strike, which will critically hit and kill the captain. Our party now being successful against the captain, managing to clear him out, and now having access to this entire ship, which they will use on the journey that they needed the enhanced drift engine for. Let's see, though, if we're going to have another character death in one of my combat demos. I'm going to say that Dinas is not going to be able to get there fast enough for Z to not have to make 1 recovery check. If this is a failure, Z is going to unfortunately pass away. And that will be, unfortunately, a failure on the dying check means that 2 for 2 combat demonstrations in a row, Z is going to pass away, and that spell effect will end, and everyone will see Z's body as Dynas like drops its gun and starts sprinting over to grab a med patch and slap it on. Z will kind of shimmer back into reality, witchwarping their reality over here, having collapsed a bit ago, but now the final fragments kind of dissipating into nothing. And everyone will mourn their friend. They're going to have to pick up a fourth crew member for their journey. But this is what sacrifice means in adventuring, unfortunately. Anyway, overall thoughts on Starfinder 2nd edition. I've done a bunch of testing behind the scenes. I'm going to be running some campaigns and one-shots using the playtest rules. I'm having a lot of fun, personally. I've been finding that, and I'm going to bring everyone out here, despite the situation, to talk about some of these things. I've been having a lot of fun, personally. I had some concerns originally with the system and with the concept that it wouldn't be able to maintain engaging gameplay because of if you've played Pathfinder long enough, you'll know that being at range can be frustrating for some people. Not having reliable ways to increase your damage with flat modifiers, and then not having access to incredibly potent feats like slam down or reactive strike, etc., means that in Pathfinder, most characters are built with a melee focus, and most characters that are built with a ranged focus are going to struggle in some regards that some people might find them uninteresting, at the very least. But I've been finding that there's quite a lot in Starfinder to provide consistent potency at range. If I want to bring up two in particular here, between Swag and Dynas, utilizing Get 'em to impose a circumstance penalty to AC half of an off guard, basically, and reflex saves. And then using the lead by example to gain a bonus to damage. Swag already is going to be dealing an extra 4 at level 5 here, for half charisma modifier at 4, and 2. And then 2 of that damage is applied to all of Swag's allies. So then Dynas here, the operative of the party, is able to use aim, and in combination with a feat, devastating aim, that increases the damage die to d6s. Here at level 5, that's an extra 2d6 damage, as long as the operative spends that extra action on aiming. And between the two of them, that means that the bonus damage is 2 from the lead by example, and then a minimum of 2 from aim, but up to 12 potentially, and an average of 7, means that on average, Dynas's shots are getting 9 damage added to them from other sources. This, of course, doesn't exclude the thing that a lot of people struggle with, which is that if all of your bonuses are small flat bonuses, or in dice particularly, there's always that potential for a very low roll. You know, you could see rolling a critical hit here. You could see damage numbers as high as like the 50s, 60s, or 70s with this kind of a lineup, but you could also just as easily see like a 14, I want to say. Let me do some quick math. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then double that to 14 and add 1 die, that's 15. Yeah, you could see as little as 15 damage on a critical hit here. Not that that's particularly likely, but it has happened to some people that I know, and it's turned them off of ranged combat in these systems in general. And that was a concern that I had for Starfinder. So seeing that that's kind of not entirely gone, but has been much solved by the options available to Starfinder characters is very fun. I've also seen some talks online about operative, specifically having a lot of things going on that maybe should be separated more into the subclasses. I think that that's a fair assessment to make, particularly with Dynas here as a sniper. There's a very high level feature. I forget which one in what level in particular, so I'm just going to toss on 20. Tactical Barrage at level 17 reduces your multiple attack penalty, but with Dynas being a sniper and snipers having the unwieldy trait, which means that you can only fire them once a round and you can't fire them as part of reactions, which also locks Dynas out of the hair trigger feat, reactive strike, but within your first range increment. There's a lot that feels like it's being given to the sniper in this situation that maybe necessarily shouldn't be, or perhaps could be more closely linked with the subclasses that do actually benefit from it. Either way, Operative is very, very fun. My experience with it thus far has been that it is definitely going to be the most diverse of the classes as far as like specific theming can go. Envoy is another very interesting class. I like it a lot. I like Get 'em. It's a very, very solid directive to base the class around, kind of. And then even though I wasn't able to show it off here all that much, acquire asset and being able to gain the benefits of size up. This is very solid, being able to gain information on critical hits as well. All these bonuses against assets. It's very, very solid. I like the kind of minigame that it sets up, and I like the theming of the Envoy as a whole. The subclasses are very fun. Witchwarper is super awesome to me, honestly. I think that there's definitely a little bit of sanding around the edges that could be done with it, but between their warp reality and their anchoring actions and spells, which I didn't have a lot of variety in, but also the fact that you can sustain it, not only with sustaining it with that action, but by casting your signature spells. I think that Witchwarper is going to have a lot of fun in being able to take advantage of their area, moving it around if necessary, or using it to flush people out, or in this case, when combined with warp terrain, allowing their party members to take cover in it. It could be kind of like a shield. There's a lot of things you can do with the quantum field, and I think it's very, very cool. Just as a base ability to put a class around, it kind of pushes Witchwarpers into area control. And then Solarian is very interesting to me. There are a few things of note when reading, like the fact that Solar Shot is a ranged strike, which means it should be using dexterity. The Foundry team has chosen to implement this using strength, which I believe was probably the intent, because especially when combined with the fact that the potency crystals that Solarian can imbibe to boost their attacks as if they were using potency runes and such in Pathfinder. Those runes don't affect Solar Shot, only their manifested weapons, which is very, very strange. But overall, I think Solarian does a very good job of feeling like a space marshal. I've had a lot of fun with the thematic design of the class. It has some issues with cross-referencing, like I pointed out, needing to go here to the bottom to check the strike effects of your solar weapon, where whenever you successfully hit something, you get these effects. That's obviously something automation could fix, but it's just, it can be very interesting to have to reference that, and then also reference the action, and it's like, I gain the Graviton-attuned effect here, and I gain the Graviton-attuned effect here, and then it's cycling, so then I'm switched over to Photon. I definitely don't dislike it. It's just that it's something that I wanted to reference, because it might take some getting used to. But it makes the Solarian feel like they're very dynamic on the battlefield, but dynamic in a tactical way. You have to take advantage of your cycling actions, and especially the actions that you want to be on a certain attunement when you cycle or have reasons to. Like, for example, Stellar Rush. A lot of the time I wanted to use it on Photon instead of Graviton, because Graviton pulls enemies in, and Photon provides that layer of concealment, and having those two different use cases, so you would kind of want to switch over to one of them to use a particular one instead of it just being an additional effect, which Eclipse Strike feels more like that, where like you're using Eclipse Strike to cycle and then it gives you whatever it gives you, whereas Stellar Rush, it feels more like you want it to be on a certain thing, unless you're using it as a gap closer, but that's I think less important than these effects. I had a lot of fun with Solarian. I think that they've managed to make strength classes work in a ranged meta. One thing that I do want to note on the side here as well, though, before I close out this video, is that I am a little concerned, just initial impressions of the playtest anyway, with the Starfinder turning into a dexterity meta. Now, I have always been a big proponent of trying out non-meta builds, trying out new things, fun things, thematic things, but if you look at what I have here, every single character except for Happy has dexterity essentially as their second key attribute. You boost your key attribute and then you do dexterity, if it isn't already, and that's because guns are so easy to use and so potent that when combined with the fact that your armor class is reliant on dexterity, and particularly with Z here, for example, only being trained in light armor means that being able to pick up the arc rifle and use it with dexterity is just super duper potent as a third action for a caster. You spend 2 actions casting something, 1 action shooting, and it's based off of the same stat that is maxing out your armor class and even providing you your reflex save bonuses. It's something that I don't think necessarily is maybe even possible to avoid in a meta like this, but something that I'm going to be keeping an eye out for, keeping my mind on, and trying to find ways to build around to kind of stress test the edges of the system, because I want to see if it's possible to build a strength-based character that isn't on a chassis that's designed for it. Because, for example, the Solarian works, the Soldier works with strength as well, because of their high tankiness and their close range kind of options. And then even the Operative has a melee-focused subclass where you would likely want to get a high amount of strength, things like that. But I want to see if you can even make strength work on other classes. Like, for example, when I bring up the iconic Mystic, I believe their name was Chick. That could be wrong. It's just off the top of my head. But you can see here that they use a melee weapon, and so this to me means strength, likely, but I can't see that working out particularly well mechanically because of the fact that Mystics are only trained in light armor, which would mean a general feat to gain medium armor to be able to maintain a solid armor class, when you could be doing some solid damage at range with guns instead, now because of their reloads being lessened so much. And that's one last thing I actually want to touch on. I know I'm going on and on here, but I hope it's not too much of a bother. I was not tracking the ammo too closely, as you'll see here, but there is a definite noticeable difference in how easy it is to just entirely ignore needing to reload. For example, Dynas as a single shot is more or less exactly like Pathfinder, so we will dismiss it here. But between Swag and Z, when taking into account the reloads between combats that could have happened, Swag would not have run out of ammo at any point and needed to reload, and neither would Z. And that's just an important thing to kind of take note of as well, is you can really spend your actions just on striking in Starfinder, and I think that reload action compression is going to be more important for single shot builds like snipers than anyone else. Though I could see a lot of rapid fire shot things, like maybe a dual wielding pistol user might take advantage of things like that. But it's a lot of fun how opening up some of the limitations that have kept ranged weapons in kind of a backseat in Pathfinder has really brought them to the forefront in Starfinder. It's a lot of fun. I recommend everyone, if you have the ability to, sit down with even just a character sheet and play something out in your head for Starfinder. I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm looking forward to learning more and sharing more with you. Thanks everyone for stopping in and watching. I'll see you next time. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. See ya. See ya.